meeting is being recorded.
And no one will hear this meeting. It's going to be living on a private YouTube link so that you can revisit it if you would like. I won't share it with, it's totally a private link just between the members of the group. Welcome, Amanda. How are you?
Great, you?
Very well. I want to go around and when Ashley gets here, making sure that she's able to get online, we're just going to really briefly introduce ourselves, and then we're going to spend the rest of the time introducing ourselves more deeply. If that makes sense. We'll see what that is as we go. I just wanted to give some background and context around the course, that this is really meant to be, this is my experiment in trying to set up a course to have people come together and make the course whatever they need it to be for themselves. Yes! Ashley.
I'm here.
Ah, jazz hands! Okay, I'm pumped, as you can tell, probably. Okay, so we're just going to dive right into this. I'm going to give like a brief introduction. We're going to then introduce ourselves really briefly, and then do some writing, and then have a discussion moving forward. And then by the end of it, you'll hopefully be aware of how the process is going and be able to tell me if you need some adjustments, because it doesn't seem like it's going to work for you. Okay, this is an experimental course around what it might be like to let people choose their own learning adventure. So one of the problems I've found with the educational system that we have it now is that we tell students what they're going to learn. We're like, here's what you're going to learn. Here's the standards, here's the outcomes, and now I'm going to test you against those. The biggest problem with that I see is that students don't have agency, i.e. creative freedom, to identify, this is what I actually want to learn, this is what I'm actually going to measure, and this is how I'm going to tell whether or not I'm meeting those goals. So there's a learning agency gap. The problem with school is not only that it kills creativity, is that it kills students' ability to creatively take charge of their own learning. So that's one big piece of this, is that I'm experimenting with what does it mean to empower people to be agents of their own learning. In the literature, it's called self-managed learning. That's one piece. The second piece is around self-actualization. Do we have anyone interested in psychology or psychological theory in here? Yeah, okay, do we know what self-actualization is, where this comes from? Anybody remember who came up with this?
I know it's at the top of the pyramid. It's by Maslow, right?
Yes.
I forget what it's all about, really, though.
It is the pyramid of needs, which actually isn't a pyramid at all. That was a misrepresentation of his theory. It's more of a network. It's actually it's problematic to say that you need food and shelter before you can work on self-actualization. That seems to imply that if you're hungry, you can't also work on self-actualization, which I think is a little fucked up. Maybe if you've traveled to a developing world, people that are hungry actually may be more self-actualized than a lot of Americans that are very full. That being aside, okay, point being, Maslow has at the top of this self-actualization, which is actualizing who we are. Another way of putting this, if we're Aristotle, is to be the best version of ourselves, which the army stole to say, be all you can be. Straight out of Aristotle. That's a powerful prompt. Be all you can be. Those are the two threads in this course. How can I manage my own learning? And how can I be all I can be? What's interesting to me in this sense is that I know nothing about that for you. I have no idea what that means for you. And I don't want to pretend or imply that I do. Which means we're kind of all, I was going to say on our own, but that's actually not true. And that's the real magic of this course, is that we're kind of on our own together in this container of time to explore what that means for us. Everything we're going to do is designed to support you in that. And that's all I'm going to say. Okay, I want to go around and just hear everybody's name and make sure we have your names right, that we're calling you by the names that you want to be called. And if you have pronoun requests or anything like that, you can say that. then we'll do a little bit more in depth. I'm just kind of curious about what your name is and where you're calling from, so we get some geographic sense of where we are. I'll start. I'm Sean. I'm in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I'm really excited to be here.
I'm Julian, and I am in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Thanks,
I'm-
Julian. Hi.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's hard to say. It's like,
I know.
I don't know who to go
I know where
first.
I see everyone in. I'm Mindy.
You go
I'm-
first. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I'm Mindy. Right now I'm in Arvada, which is a western suburb of Denver, Colorado.
Awesome.
I'm Benny, and I'm also in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Hi,
I'm
Benny.
Kathy Nix, and I'm in Santa Cruz, California.
Awesome.
Banana slugs.
Wait, what's the banana slugs? I don't know that
That's
reference.
UCSC.
Aha. Ashley.
My alma mater is Colorado State. Raised my kids in Colorado.
Whoa, cool.
Go Rams. I'm
Go
Ashley. I'm
Rams.
also in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I'm a former Ram.
Yes.
I'll go.
Awesome.
I'm Amanda Riepert, born and raised in Fort Collins and now back here. And just up the road, I think, from you, Sean. So
Yay. Diana.
Yep, my name is Diana. I am originally from Mexico City, so I do pronounce my name in Spanish. So I say Diana.
Diana.
I
Okay.
don't get upset at people who don't pronounce it that way. But I'm currently in Querétaro, Mexico, flying tomorrow, if I am free from COVID, to Boston, where I live with my husband.
Awesome. Diana, thank you. Matthew.
My name is Matthew Dolezal, and I live in Fort Collins, Colorado, not too far from all of you, and I'm excited to be here. Thanks for showing up, and I'm really excited to see what we can do together.
Me too. Okay, we're gonna start diving in with the main material from the course, and we're gonna have the whole goal of today is to actually generate more community and see how well we can do that in about another hour and 10 minutes or so. And that being aside, here's how we're going to do that. How many of us have done some free writing before? How many of us, okay, how many of us have a current practice of free writing that we write daily, almost at least 6 days out of 7 a week? Okay, I want to experiment with what that's going to be like for all of us. And what I want to do is give us some basic rules for free writing that we can follow and make sure that we're doing it in the right way. Which is ironic because part of free writing is to get out of a thinking like we're doing things right or wrong. And I want us to play with how this is going to work for us, each in our individual situation. But for our notes, there's just basically 3 rules that I like to use for free writing, and we could expand. Or number 1, we're just trying to keep the pen moving, as Natalie Goldberg says. So just keep writing. Number 2, and this is the most important one, you're not judging what you're writing as good or bad. Number 2, you're not judging what you're writing as good or bad. Why is this so important? The whole point of this is to show up to generate a kind of non-judgmental awareness of what's going on. So this is how many of us have done any mindfulness meditation? Okay, so the goal of mindfulness and meditation, at least intro, mindfulness is the first part of meditation as far as early Indian Buddhism, which I studied. You're not trying to get your mind to stop thinking. It's a common misconception with mindfulness. You're not sitting down and removing thoughts. Actually, it doesn't really work for anybody. You're just being aware of what thoughts arise and not judging them. So if something comes up, so I'm in my pages and I'm like, boy, this is weird. That's exactly what you're going to put down on the page. Or you start thinking about the movie that you watched last night. That's what you're going to put down. You just keep the pen moving. Cool. Number 3, the third rule is that you're not really rereading what you write. So you're not worried about punctuation, grammar. It's kind of an extension of the second one. You're not trying to write well. Julia Cameron says the people that have the hardest time with a free writing practice are writers. Because they're trained to, when I'm writing well. No, that's not what this is for. You're not going to show this to anyone. You're not going to share this with anyone. Or you're going to choose, actually, if you want to share it, how much you want to share. But for this is just between you and you. Which is why I love it. I'm going to add a fourth rule. And this isn't in the literature that we're using, but it's the one that I use. I would just use this as a space to be kind to yourself. So just be nice to yourself. For the people from Chicago, don't be an asshole to yourself. No. Just be nice to yourself. So for me, I usually, when I do this, it's always with my tea or coffee. And I'm like, this is the signal I send to my brain that, this is Sean time. Don't bother me for the next 5 minutes, please. Cool? That makes sense? Okay. Now, typically with the free writing prompt, it's just free writing. Actually, there's no prompt. You just show up. And Natalie Goldberg says you should go for the jugular, would be her unofficial 5th rule. Whatever is most alive, that's what you want to put down. So if something's coming up to you that feels very like something that's pissing you off, something that's making you happy, and there's some caveats there. It's kind of dangerous to write about what pisses you off in some therapy. You might not want to do that. But if it's really alive for you, I say go for it. I've had previous students that are like, oh man, writing what makes me angry was awesome. Then I just got it all out. Now I write about what makes me happy. So gratitude journal is another big one. Okay. That being all said, I am going to give us some prompts today that we're going to use to generate community. And it's from the first week of material. And those prompts are these. Who am I? These questions are like the biggest. Oh boy. 1, who am I? You can answer that however you want. Where am I? You can answer that however you want. Emotionally, professionally. And then, what is the good life? So if I imagine like the good life, what does that look like to me? Is it a gold-plated yacht free floating in the Caribbean? Is it recording music videos with a giant, I don't know. Whatever. You don't need to answer all these questions. I would answer whichever one pops out at you as being the most fun to write about. What we're doing right now is called a timed exercise, and we're getting practice in the first invitation to write, and it's kind of the framework of the course. I would recommend for beginners like 3 or 5 minutes, just so there's no pressure. But we're gonna go for 10 minutes. So we're kind of a little bit jumping into the deep end of a free writing practice, at least as the timed exercise. Make sense? Any questions?
We
Okay.
can focus on one of those prompts.
You
We don't
can.
have to go.
And honestly, you can forget all of those. I had a student last time being like, I thought free writing was, free. And I'm like, okay, well, touche. Were you free? And he's like, no, I was following your instructions. And I'm like, well, what were you doing? No, anyway. So yeah, if none of those work for you and you want to write a love letter because you're thinking about someone, I don't care. Just try to keep your pen moving. And we're going to go for 10 minutes until 12:25. Any other questions? That was a great one, Kathy. Thank you.
I have a question. Usually when we
Please.
do these types of things, we turn off our cameras. Do we do that here?
It's up to you. What should we do? Are we okay with that? I'm going to keep mine on and I do want we should mute just in case there's background. It's up to you.
Okay.
It's a good one. give me another minute to kind of finish any thoughts, or if you hit on something that you want to write more about, put that down. Any questions that you have, put those down. Okay. I hate to interrupt people that are writing, so just tune me out if you want to. I'm curious about the experience of that, particularly for people that aren't used to doing that kind of a writing practice. So how was that for you? Not about the content of what you wrote, but just about the experience of that.
Well, I don't do a lot of free writing, or it's not something I've really ever done. But I think it quickly made me realize like my brain is always moving, and like I am definitely a brain person where like my brain never stops.
Yes.
So it was just interesting. Like all of a sudden I'm just writing and I had no problem keep writing. So it was kind of fun to just be like, wow, I can just put my brain thoughts on paper, which it's just constantly going in my world. So maybe this is a good exercise. I don't know. So that was my big realization.
I haven't done anything like that in a while. And I feel like in the past, whenever I would sit down and like put my journal in front of me, I would just be like, cool, I don't know what to write. So I think that even just like the small push of who are you was really nice, because I went onto so many different tangents that had like nothing to do. Well, it's not directly correlated with who are you, but it was really nice to see where that went. And even though someone like other people might be like, oh well, this isn't free writing, I feel like you're still able to talk about whatever you want to talk about, and that was just that little push that I needed. Even though it was just so small, it was significant even so that was nice.
I share that with Benny, and for sure, stream of consciousness kind of writing, and it helped to have the prompts for me, because I would be like, nah, what am I going to write about? But it just became very easy, and I'm also glad it didn't last longer than 10 minutes. My hands were getting tired, or my writing hand was getting tired. So I like the parameters. I like the organization of that.
Yes.
Yeah, my hand started cramping up like 2 minutes into it. I've like barely held a pen since I finished school like over a year ago. So it's like
I feel that one.
Yeah, the physical practice too.
Yeah.
I thought it felt like less than 10 minutes too. When you were like, all right, one more minute. I was like, wait, really?
Yeah, I thought that too. I was like, oh, 10 minutes is going to take forever in my world.
Yeah.
But,
Matthew, I like your dog.
Thank you. Sorry, I hope he doesn't interrupt. I just tend to sit on the floor.
No,
I let them. Thank you.
Taking it in.
My other one's sitting over here too, and she kind of is the shadow.
Oh.
Awesome.
If they get too distracted, I'll remove them.
It's one of the best parts about Zoom.
Yeah. Sean, to be honest, even though I've done this for a while, I felt myself trying to force it and try too hard and write too hard and press too hard and scribble too hard and get into it. And I was tired by the end of it, my hand too, just from the kind of putting a little bit more pressure than I usually do. But also I have like strong plumber grip hands, so I can easily crush the pen. And so I found that interesting, where I was like, like scribing on the page.
Can I ask a clarifying question about that, Matthew?
Sure, please.
So you described that as being forced in a physical sense. You were pressing hard, but were you forcing it in like a mindfulness sense?
But that whole, yeah, you intuitively found, but all of that, like just kind of like just like raging on the page rather than like mind dumping on the page, where I felt myself getting quite a bit more emotional when there's a group energy to it and like something to prove or something to do. And for me, then all of a sudden it went all over the place. Like I was on a thread and then like I just kind of went into the can of worms and then had to reel myself back. And I think that that's the beauty of like losing yourself on the page. And also for me, the key is not trying so hard.
And not judging yourself. It sounds like you're judging it a lot too.
Well, no, well, just more so. I felt it. I felt the whole thing. I felt the whole thing. You know. So
that's so interesting. Thanks for clarifying and sharing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I really like it. Well, I like what Matthew just said because I couldn't figure out why it was so different. And I had done the artist way, 15 years ago, and I used to do morning pages, and I've been trying to get back, but it's been sporadic. And the energy it's very different in a group. And what I noticed is I started like that one prompt, where am I? And it was like, it started out like poetic, and then it kind of like went into a direction that I was like, oh, and it was, to me, it was very different. I haven't had that kind of zone since I tried to restart. I mean, I'm not I keep looking at my notebook. It's like maybe twice a week. I need to get back to every day, but work takes over. And it is the group. I have never written in a group. I've done the get together once a week and discuss the artist way, but not write in a group.
I haven't either, and I was actually that's really intriguing that it kind of affected me in a different way, because I feel like I put more pressure on myself when I'm by myself, at least just based off of this one experience, which I don't know how it'll go in the future. Lots of possibilities. But I've noticed that when I'm by myself, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and that's when I kind of like am more feeling in a rut while I'm writing, like, what the heck is this? But here I was very shocked that I was a little bit more comfortable with it in a strange sense.
I'm going to resonate with that, Benny. I think that having the structure and having the group actually made me feel more comfortable in the process. And I've done like a writing retreat when I was writing my dissertation where we'd all sit in a room and you just show up together and everyone's writing something different, a different project, but you're there to write, and just having the camaraderie of other people in the room also there writing to write helped me finish my dissertation, because when I would sit down to write by myself, I'd just be like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. But when I showed up to write, the community of that helped me a lot as well. So
yeah, you're like feeding off of all the creative energy.
Yeah, camaraderie is what comes to mind over competition.
That's awesome.
What did you say, Amanda? What over competition?
That I didn't feel like it was competitive at all. It was more like I like the energy of all of us kind of, safety in numbers, struggling through this together, maybe not being practiced at the daily practice.
Yeah,
so I like the camaraderie.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and kind of what you said, Benny and Ashley. Like that thought was in my mind too, where I was like, I'm probably going to sit there and just stare at a blank page when we do this. And it was the opposite, but I would certainly do that on my own. I don't know if it's a squirrel thing, on my own, where I'm just like, okay, then I'm going to go do this, and then I'm going to go do that, or whatever. But yeah, I had that same experience. It was surprising that it was easier, not harder, in a group setting for me.
I resonated with what Matthew said as well. My grip was tight, and it also reminded me that I was a few months ago I was coloring a lot, like coloring books, and I had to take breaks because it was just too painful, and I need to learn to maybe soften the grip. And then the other thing was just like the exercise itself felt very much like just sitting with myself and listening to what I had to say. It was a nice feeling.
Sorry.
No, go
No,
for it.
please. I've been talking. You please.
All right. I was just gonna say, I think I kind of felt similarly to Mindy at the beginning of this, where I'm like, man, like, what do I write? I'm gonna just sit here looking at the blank page. And then I remembered, like, oh yeah, rule number one, like, just keep the pen moving. And that's like, that happened a few times throughout, where I was like kind of finishing an idea and I was like, shit, I think I'm done. I'm like, no, try to keep it moving. And then like wrote whatever like random, unrelated, not that important idea came out, and then that led to other things. So I think following that rule is something I'm just gonna have to like keep working hard on following.
The pen moves and then your brain moves with it. I was literally just about to say that whenever my brain stopped making words, I just started to draw a squiggly line until more words came to me. And it went pretty well. The squiggles aren't that long.
There's so much I could say. That was amazing.
Sean, I could tell you were like geeking out that whole conversation.
So many. I think the one that's standing out the most to me is actually Mindy at the very beginning saying, maybe it's a good exercise for me. I don't know. It's kind of like a throwaway comment to finish what she said. I freaking love that. Because that's the kind of experimental attitude of like, I don't know if this is going to work. We'll see. I loved that. So that was one thing that, because I think there's a lot of different ways to approach this. I also really like the idea of having prompts, or I call them invitations because it's kind of nicer for me. It's like more invitational, but having prompts and a container was really stood out to me. The container of time, play with that. And the container, and I think two of the most fascinating things, everyone geeking out about Matthew, your self-awareness of being like, how hard I was pushing into the paper was a reflection of how I was doing it. I love that. Like, that's really interesting. And Ashley's question that really clarified that, please.
I think it just shows how much is like trapped inside right now, and how much I want to press forward, and how long it's been, and like being an emotional man and from Chicago, then the go for the jugular is a good thing. I hold my nice in one hand, Chicago shank in the other. But what I'm getting at is I felt that like this. It didn't soften for me, and I was okay with that because the words that I were writing were pretty deep and intense and pouring on the page.
The thing that resonated with me from that interaction is, Deanna, you summed it up, and I wrote down what you wrote. You said, I need to soften the grip. Yes. I was like, there's just so much in that. I need to soften the grip. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Loosening the grip on that.
Class dismissed.
I don't know why that felt like a little judgmental though too, because it's like, do I have to? Maybe
I invite myself to soften the grip.
Yeah, that's something I didn't realize I was doing, but then when Matthew was describing it, I'm like, man, that's like exactly what was going on with me too. So yeah, I also got to soften the grip.
Yeah, same. In fact, my brain, I was like, maybe I just need a new pen. Then I started blaming it on the extra. I was like, I probably just need to order some new pens. I only picked up my phone and went to Amazon, but
I was thinking soften
not the time.
more in like a philosophical way, like kind of like the forcing of the thing.
I think we got that, Ashley. I think everybody picked up on that.
No, I know what you meant. Because that's where I was like, oh, I probably just need a new pen.
Well, honestly, there is something to that. Again, and Natalie Goldberg writes about that. Doing anything you can to send yourself the signal that you're taking care of yourself is what you want. So if a pen that writes smoothly, some people geek out about that. Like, once I discovered really great paper and really great pens, I never went back. It's like, okay, fine. Well, so there is something to that. Last thing that we didn't say, how interesting about how this group creates different reactions. And Kathy, like feeling the kind of pressure that you're like, okay, I've got to perform in some way. That kind of performance anxiety is one side of that. But then for me, the other big thread about like disappearing in the group, so that actually takes the pressure off. It's less about, I don't know, I'm not really communicating that very well. But it's really fascinating how having a group where I can kind of be kind of prompted to show up a little more, but also have the support of the group where I can kind of disappear in the background if I want. It was really fascinating to me how that conversation played out. I'm not really communicating that very well.
Well, Sean, I think it connects with what I asked in the beginning. Is like, should we turn the cameras off? It's like I think some people, would feel better just like the group's there, but I'm separating from the group, and then other people maybe wanted to like see people and know that we're doing it together, and it's like, whatever you need from that. But I think that was the intention of why I asked that question.
Good one.
And I think something that's very interesting, Sean, is that not only are you facilitating, you're also participating. It's also, it depends if you're facilitating or participating, and we're coming to learn and work together. And I think that that's a big piece. If we're under our layers of expertise, that may be very different than participating and learning and being vulnerable and trying something new and having that beginner's mind. And loosening the grip is something that I try and teach a lot of times, but teaching it for myself is one of the most challenging.
Amazing. And yeah, I'll see that comment and raise you. It's not just like the free writing. This is the course I designed that I wanted to take. When I started actually asking myself, what's the course that I would want to take? And what's the course, if I'm going to be facilitating it over and over again, what's the course I would want to take over and over again? And as soon as I came up with that question, things moved really quickly, because it was like, oh, this is cool. And now I literally do feel like this is the 8th time I've taken it, and I've gotten different things out of it each time. And I feel like I'm excited for this one in proportion to how easily this group came together on my end. And anyway, so yes, not only will I be writing with you, I will be doing the prompts in my own way. And I want to encourage us. I'm going to give you more material than is almost humanly possible to complete throughout the end of the course. So I don't want it to be an overload where I'm just like, oh my God, I'm still on day 4 and it's day 45. I just keep on writing day 4. What's wrong with me? No. Nothing's wrong with you. At least, whatever, that's not what this is for. Just hopefully this is useful for you and your own purposes. And I am going to be doing the entire course with us, because I am like, and that connects to the other main point that I wanted to make today. I'm not even going to make it. We're going to move forward to the next big question. Thanks for all of that. Any final reflections on that before we move on? That was a pretty amazing reflection on process.
I also, one last thing that I care to share is that I really appreciate that the way you carefully use your words. And you say, like, you invite us to do something, because I just got out of college and I had a lot of like, you have to do this. And it was just like aggressive schoolwork. And I was a little bit nervous because, Annie was talking to me about this and such. And I was a little bit nervous because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to do all this stuff. And then I opened your email and I was like, these are all just invitations. This is so beautiful. So I just wanted to say I appreciate that.
Cool. Me too. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I want to introduce ourselves a little bit more. So kind of maybe what we do for work or what we do for play. Just a little bit. But honestly, I'm more interested in, I want to invite us to go a little deep in a way that feels comfortable. What did we write about? How many of us wrote What is the Good Life, or wrote something about that? How about the Who Am I prompt? I didn't do that one this time. I kind of did. Where am I prompt? So if there's something you want to share about that, I'm particularly interested in, what we might, if it's true that different people get different things out of this course, which is true, it's also true, it's totally legit to not have any idea what you want to get out of this course. So if I'm like, I don't know I don't know what I'm doing here, that's totally fine as well. But I do want to kind of, if you have personal goals for the course, or if, and nice use of the chat, Julian, we haven't used the chat yet, but that is one way to kind of have multiple conversations at once, and I'll share that. If there are personal goals that you want to say, even just like doing a free writing practice every day for 5 minutes is great. Whatever, if you have personal goals or your definition of the good life, what is the good life? Another way of asking this is what really matters to you. So I'll put both of those in there. And yeah, awesome. Does anybody want to start us off on the... It's terrible. I'll say this. I generally, when I was in school and still as a philosopher, I hate dichotomies like deep or shallow. I had a participant last time that was like, oh, what I said wasn't very deep. I just wrote that I'm a mother and a child. And everyone was like, that's deep. And she's like, is it? And we were like, I think so. And actually, like, deep and shallow don't really apply to that. I don't know. Forget that I said we're going to go in the deep end. Just, who are you? What's happening here? Let's introduce ourselves a little bit more. I'm going to mute myself now.
Well, I guess I can start if that's what you're asking for us.
Yes, Kathy, welcome.
I am at a stage in my life where I'm trying to figure out if I continue what I'm doing or change completely. It's yet another chapter. And I'm in a great position, actually. I work at Google Research, and the key is, do I continue in this realm, or do I shift down into something that's more impactful to the world? So it's kind of, that's everything I wrote about. Where am I? Is this straddling? Like I don't know what leg I'm going to stand on. Am I going to stay in California or go back to Colorado? Am I going to stay at Google or go do my own thing? Am I going to retire? Am I going to do any of this stuff? And so that's kind of the whole dance. And that's, I just got out of a long-term relationship, so I'm still in that grief arc, and that just shatters everything. And it's just this whole like, ooh, what, it shatters, but it also frees. And so it's that whole like, what do I want to do when I grow up? and that's the dance. So that's kind of me. And what I do for play is I'm a cyclist. So I mountain, road, whatever. And then I live 3 blocks from the water. So I surf and sup and sail and get my meditation there or in the woods.
Well, that's how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, we can do the snaps.
Yeah.
Matthew, I'm just going to call people to make it less awkward.
Totally. Well, I'm currently a jaded yoga teacher walking into a 200-hour teacher training on Friday, and I'm a full-time yoga teacher. And that comes as a loaded statement these days in the worlds of spirituality and deep connection. And so what I'm working on right now and the goal for me is interesting. That's wrapped in the theme of today's conversation is my yoga is called Effort and Grace, through the empowerment of softening. And so I've had kind of like the tough guy crybaby from Chicago, blue collar family, hockey family. I grew up in fistfight culture. I was a bond trader back in the day, and took that success into one of my first failures. That was a long-time relationship that picked up and never talked to me again, and I still never talked to her. And so a decent human being and a sensitive man, although we can say who deserves what, that was the challenging point in my life. But I'm coming on the rebound of now my second biggest failure of exactly what we're trying to do in this collaboration, is not only find ourselves, but our creative outlets and expressions to the world. And so right now I teach, I've taught a pretty staunch alignment-based program and it's really commanding and demanding. And those styles of teachings seem to be a little outdated these days. And so this more fluid realms of what I'm calling it in a new project is kind of what I'm here to inspire and create together with you guys.
Dang. Yeah. Love it. Anybody else want to go? I'll go. I wrote about beginning again. It was kind of surprising. And that would be another cool prompt. I'm the kind of person that likes surprises. I like to be surprised. And that was surprising to me that so much of what I wrote about this time was about this idea of beginning again. I'm reading a book called Beginners, the Joy and Transformative Power of Lifelong Learning, which is like right up my alley. And it's been inspiring to see someone really treat that as like a real subject, and that we just don't have a cultural structure to help adults be beginners, not just with beginner's mind, but to learn. Well, we have all these support networks for kids to do new things, but we don't there's very little support networks for kids to learn with their parents, and for parents to learn with their kids, actually, in that order. I am expecting a child in March, our first baby, which is that came up as being like, this is a big beginning for me and what that means. And I've been using a lot of my experiences as like learning opportunities. That frame has really helped me get through some shit. And this feels like the biggest learning opportunity ever. So that's been an emotional roller coaster for a while, and it's been, so yeah, I'm excited to do that. I am also softening my creative grip on I feel like there's like 1,000 things I could do. Maybe not, actually. More accurately, there's like 6 things, big initiatives connected with the Wisdom Workshop. In the school, Wisdom Workshop in the schools is like really interesting to me. Thinking about mindfulness and social emotional learning to support teachers is connected to that. It's really interesting. We're working on it this summer. A long-standing podcast. I have like 12 episodes I haven't released, and like 4 more happening. A manuscript that I'm working on. A series of social media posts that I'm working on and creating and having fun with. 2 EPs with 2 different groups. One of them that's mixed and mastered and ready to go. We just need a release plan for it. And then, yeah, so that's like 2 different ones. So yeah, about 7 things I'm working on. And that can be like overwhelming, but honestly, I realize that I really like just beginning again. There's something like, I really like that. And I'm also working on, I wrote that I was interesting this self-managed learning in groups. So it seems like it's between me and my learning process, but doing that in groups is fascinating. And self-actualization, like becoming the best version of myself, but in groups. That we think of self-actualization as like between me, and I'm more interested in leaning into this self-actualization in groups, what that looks like. I'm also trying to work on just like letting yesterday go. So if I like start a blog post that is really great, but I don't finish it, to just like be like, just let it go, man. Don't be like, just like let yesterday go. Just what's fun today. Because that's been helping me. Yes. Thank you, Matthew. Snaps for me. Snaps for me.
I can go.
Oh, go ahead, Ashley.
Let's go,
Go
Ashley.
ahead.
Okay.
Go. We'll go after you.
We'll go Mindy and then
sounds
Ashley.
good. Yeah, this is I don't know what I want out of this course. I have no idea. I'm happy to be here, though. Kathy, I feel like I'm kind of in a similar place. You know, I resonate with a lot of things you said in your life and my life, and I kind of look at right now, especially with work, I'm kind of like entering the fall of my life. it's not ending tomorrow, but it's coming up soon. And it really has me thinking about like, what do I want to be doing for the next 10 or 12 years, you know, and how do I end that side of my life well, or at least what's well for me. And, you know, I actually so I'm a Ram as well. I lived in Fort Collins for years and years. And I was a fine arts major. I love painting, creativity. Like I've always been on that side, but like, that's never been my career, right? It's how I went into advertising, but I worked on the client side. I now work in technical recruiting, which sounds awful and sometimes is, you know, and like, it's created what I think externally for me, and a lot of people would say, wow, you have a good life. Like I have a good life, like externally, but internally, I feel like this isn't the life I would have drawn for myself. Like I'm not even, you know, like I don't paint anymore. I haven't painted for years. Like I'm so far away from anything creative. Like it almost makes me like cry, you know, but I don't know how to fix it. And I don't know if I'm going about it wrong. Like, am I trying to fix something that doesn't need fixed? Like maybe I need to take a different approach. And so that's why this was appealing to me. Like, I've never done free writing. Like, I don't know what I would get out of this, but you know, what's that adage, you know, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, like you're just an idiot. So maybe I've just been an idiot for the last 20 years. So yeah, so I just, you know, I just feel like I'm at a crossroads too. And like, I want to feel like when I look back on the next 10 years, if that's the last 10 years of my, especially working life, like I did something meaningful for me and creative, and maybe that's continuing doing tech recruiting, but I just bring back creativity in other ways in my life. Maybe it's getting out of that totally and just really focusing on something that makes me internally happy from that standpoint. So yeah, that's a lot of things to figure out, I guess. But I guess that's why I'm thankful for the journey here and just to see where it can take me. But personally, I'm also I'm a big outdoors person. I live and love the mountains, whether I'm mountain biking or hiking or all of that stuff. Like that's me. And I love that side of life. But I want to combine it with a better creative life, I think, for me as well. So I'm kind of tired of, I've said to a lot of people, I feel like over the last 5 years, so much of my life feels like I've been there, done that. And it's awesome. And I'm not complaining, because I think people on the outside be like, wow, you've had a really cool life. And I'm like, yeah, I have. I've done a lot of amazing things. I'm super active. I go and do, but it's just not felt fulfilling the last 5 years. And so I want to figure that out. That was a lot.
That's great. I normally don't do this, but I just feel like, yeah, painting more, making more art, and not just doing that, but thinking creatively about how to set up the conditions to make starting and doing that easier. And I would use that as a prompt moving forward. How can you modify your environment so that when you want to go paint, you don't have to like unbury the canvas, get out the things, do the things. Because all those non-painting things probably take a lot of different energy that's not connected with the painting things. And you could start a TikTok with your paintings.
And NFTs.
And NFTs.
I would definitely need help with that.
Well, see, this is exactly what I love, is that it's not a been there, done that. Have you launched NFTs to support your TikTok channel of your original artwork?
Yeah. No.
Okay, well, there you go. I'm not saying you should, not yet. And I'm not like, I don't normally do this because I want this to be as self-directed as possible, but it was just seemed so obvious on the surface of like, I haven't painted in this long. I want to do something that is meaningful to me. I was a fine art major. I love to paint, but I haven't painted. I'm just like, paint. Anyway.
Right. It's so simple.
Maybe not. I don't know.
It's so simple yet so difficult. And that's like, that eats at me. And it's like,
yes.
understand this. Like, why am I not doing things that I know I truly love? Like,
And then the other thing I can say is that I think there's a lot of room for self-compassion here as well, because I actually think it's a lot harder than it seems like it would be easy, but I don't think it is. I actually think there's a lot of inertia really isn't quite the right word. That's why I said focus on the environment rather than the thing, because it's actually very difficult to, I think there's a lot of room for self-compassion there as well, honestly. I don't think it's not easy to do those things, honestly, no matter how much you love them. Because it takes a lot of energy to do what you're doing to just keep your life going, right? I would imagine.
Yeah, those are good takeaways. Thank you.
Whew. All right. Ashley.
All right. I guess I'm up. So this will probably sound a bit similar to Kathy and Mindy. So I'm Ashley. I'm a Capricorn. I just turned 40 in December. And in
Amazing.
February, I'm moving to Des Moines, Iowa with my husband, who just like landed his like dream job. So I'm like kind of like sitting in this place of like, oh my gosh, like turn the page, new beginning, these themes that everyone keeps already kind of sprinkling in there. I've accomplished a shit ton. I have like, overeducated and underpaid, kind of like 5 degrees and a professional degree and a PhD. And I started a company that's profitable, and the company actually has gotten to the point where I've hired for all of the things I used to do. And now I'm just like, I don't have anything. It's not like I don't have anything left to do, but I'm not in the day-to-day operations part of the business anymore. And so I'm kind of like looking at it like, what do I want to do with this now? It's like kind of running itself, and I'm not important to the management anymore. So what have I done? So I kind of put myself out of a job a little bit. But I've been really successful, and I live a charmed life, and I have a great relationship. And in fact, there was a retreat that I did with my husband called Love Intentionally. And I mention it because at the beginning, they say that the purpose of Love Intentionally is not for relationships in crisis. They're for relationships that are flourishing, and that you want to have a strategic plan with your partner. So you talk about these 10 tenets of your relationship. And the reason I bring that up is that I'm not in crisis right now. I'm not like, things aren't falling apart around me. I'm just here because I want to change my frequency and use this move and this turning 40 and this opportunity to kind of create the life I want to live. And I feel like I've spent the last 40 years working really hard. And I think I'm a creative human in that I'm creative in my approaches to things, but I'm not very creative in a physical sense. Like I don't paint, and I write, but for work or for a dissertation, not for pleasure. So I feel like I have creativity in me, and I've been able to use that in my business and academic life, but not in like my personal pleasurable and enjoyment side of things. So I'm looking to kind of figure out like what do I want to be for the next 40 years? What do I want to do for the next 40 years? Because I know that I'm really good at setting intent and then following through and accomplishing things. And so what do I want those things to be next? And what do I want this move to look like for me? And who do I want to be on the other side? So that's why I'm here. And I've been following Sean for a while, mostly his photography that just always is so beautiful and inspiring to me. And then just the creation of all of his approaches to these courses has just been it. I'm a life learner, and that's why I have so many degrees. And in academia, you'd mentioned how like restricting it is, where they tell you what you should be doing and what you need to learn. And I turned that model on its head at CSU. Like I developed my whole PhD was my own proof of concept for my business. And I picked my own outside committee members, and I like totally made it my own. And I made my education work for me, and I had to work it through the system, and it was really hard. But like, Sean, that really resonated with me when you were talking about that. And I think when I had Instagrammed you when I signed up for this course, because I was at dinner talking to my husband, and I was like, I think I want to write more. I think I want to journal more. And then I saw your post on Instagram for this course, and I was like, well, I guess I got to do that. It's like, it was like a calling. So that's how I found the course. So that's a lot also. Personally, I have a whippet behind me named Artemis, and I'm really into whippets. It's the breed I love, and I'm actually going to pick up a 7-year-old whippet who was displaced in the fires here in Colorado, who's been at the shelter for a couple weeks. Her owner had to relinquish her, which is like the saddest thing ever. So I'm gonna go pick her up today, and I'm interested in like fly ball and kind of working with whippets on agility and things like that. So I do that in my spare time. Yeah, that's me.
Didn't you also like start kicking ass in poker?
Yeah, I'm a poker player, so I kind of fell in love with the game. It's a really elegant game, and I think it's because it's a left brain and right brain game. Like you have to really be good at both, and I think I'm left brain and right brain. Like I can excel in both. I think that's why I love the game. But yeah, I played in the World Series of Poker this year.
There's one thing that I want to mention in terms of two things actually structurally of the course that you kind of prefaced. The first is the definition of play that we're going to come back to. One of my favorite books I read last year is just called Play. And definition of play is something you do for its own sake because you enjoy doing it. So you said, you were like, I've written for work. I'm a creative person. I've put my creativity to work for all of these purposes that are not the thing itself. And there's a lot of really interesting research that our culture doesn't really promote play. Like have you thought about turning your play into a side hustle? You can monetize it on TikTok, right? Our culture doesn't really do what are you doing for its own sake that you're not trying to do anything? Like you just do it because you enjoy it. Like, oh, I play in the mountains. I play doing this thing. So I think exploring, it'll be interesting, Ashley. I also I would encourage you to play with the experimentation part of this, where you just set up learning experiences for yourself and then learn from them. So you just play with your ability to learn in different ways and different venues. Might be really exciting.
Cool.
But we'll explore that moving forward. The other thing, synchronicity, like having this, I said I want to write more, and then I open up Instagram and here's this thing, and so I'm going to go with that. There's a thing called synchronicity streaks. So like this leads to another one, leads to another one, leads to another one, which we're going to play with in week 3. It's a little, you might think it's a little woo-woo, but there's some interesting psychological science behind it. So
I like a little woo-woo, just a little bit.
I do too. I also really like evidence-based science. So
Me too.
That's
totally.
kind of
a little bit of both. That's why I said I was a Capricorn at the beginning. So
yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I resonate with that. I'm a Capricorn too, Ashley. And it's the left brain, right brain, like.
I knew it. I am too.
See? Synchronicity.
I know. Yeah. I was like, I bet those two are Capricorns.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Hardcore.
I always think of Jim Morrison on I don't know what y'all think about astrology. Have you heard this clip? Oh, it's probably not relevant, but he's just like, and I'm not even going to say that. Anyway, awesome. Let's go with Amanda. Let's go with another Capricorn party.
Great. Hi. Yeah, I'll round out the Capricorn group unless we've left anybody out. I just had mine on Friday, my birthday, but I was going to either go to Capricorn or you're a 7 on the Enneagram scale, something kind of, similar spots. I won't repeat what's been repeated. I wish I had accomplished as much as you have by age 40, actually. That's very impressive. I've had amazing jobs. So, people have touched on creativity by way of kind of building. I've built like my position in my current job or something the way that it is and the way that I wanted to. It wasn't mapped out for me. That's kind of as creative as it gets. Otherwise, I'm a taskmaster. It's not terribly inspiring. I check a lot of boxes. So I think for me, getting back to what this course is I want to learn more by using the other side of my brain. I'm very much a doer, fill the days totally full with everything because I have a load of not responsibility, I have tons of flexibility in my current position. And so I will go for a ride, Kathy. We do gravel we do mountain. Cameron does, my husband, and I do road, and the compromise was gravel. So we can do that together. Anyway, so go for a ride. I go play tennis. I have every ability to kind of break the task mastering up during the day with lots of activities, but those are almost always physical activities. They're not like creative outlets, writing. I'm very affected by light. I didn't know that. I did grow up in Colorado. I left to go to Chicago, Matthew, for my first time away from Colorado, and learned how quickly I am affected by light. So I really need, and I'm very sensitive to it. I had no idea though, because I'd never lived anywhere else. My parents were there, they lived down the street. They're super cool, young at heart, very active. We have a great relationship with them and see them all the time. And they were, I feel like, ahead of their time, where they, didn't give us gifts. They exposed us to travel and different experiences and stuff. And that has become very cool. And obviously I feel like I'm, so lucky to have had that. But at any rate, I do all of these things activity wise. A lot of them are outside. I sit right now in a remote office doing a lot of these types of meetings. So no offense, Sean, this is another Zoom meeting. It's like, sometimes I'm just so wrecked from this kind of interaction, not this kind of creative interaction, but the work interaction that I do via this format. And I almost just don't know where to come up with the bandwidth to go seek the creative things after I've done this, work stuff in a Microsoft Teams or Zoom setting for a lot of the day. So it's the best I can do. Sometimes I go for a walk with the dogs. So it sounds like lots of us are dogs people. And I have two at my feet too. Dwight and Willard are our children. Wow. And one is vocal and one is not. But anyway, so, it's just kind of, it's easy and great. And also I'm not tapping into something, just like Mindy, I think you're not, and, would love to learn how to do that better and just think with the other side of my brain. So I did originally answer the question, where am I? And it wasn't a physical, where am I? It's like kind of, where am I in my space, in my head, in my life, and that kind of thing. So that was a whole lot, but yeah, a lot of overlap. So thank you.
I'm most interested in terms of thinking about coming up with a bandwidth after spending in Microsoft Teams meeting all day and this kind of thing. There's an interesting question embedded in there that I wonder about, if it's possible to preserve more of your bandwidth during the day by changing, if there is some play or flexibility in how you do that in a more playful way. I don't know. But that's you might play with, because I do think there's other really interesting research that time management is overrated. It's all about energy management. So you can set aside time for something, but if you don't have the energy to do that thing, it doesn't, you're like wasting your time. So it's really, the game is energy cultivation more than time management. So that you're doing all your time management, but you have to cultivate the energy so that you actually have that. And we cultivate our energy with movement, nutrition, and rest. So that might be, I don't know, maybe I need to do some more movement in this chair so I'll have more energy when this meeting ends. Kathy, it seems like...
Well, I was going to say, I put a yoga mat in the floor. So if I have 4 minutes, I try to move. And then I have a balance board, like a surfboard thing. And it's just fun. And just trying to keep your core activated. If you can hold it for a minute, and then you just kind of run back to the next meeting, is what I'm finding. Because I'm in 8 hours of meetings a day sometimes, and it just need that quick. And it has to be accessible and fun.
Yes. All right, new rule. We're going to make breaks in the middle of these sessions because we've been going on too long sitting in the same position. It's not going to happen again. There's also, thanks, Ashley. There's interesting research on the power pose where you can stretch out, or if you actually put your arms on here and then look to the sky and kind of look up and to the left like you're super person. And if you hold that for 60 seconds, it actually releases all, it makes you feel more powerful. So everybody, let's look ridiculous and be like, 40 more seconds. I had to look at the screen to see if I was the only one doing it. Oh yeah, circulation happening. 20 more seconds. Oh yeah, we should have done this 40 minutes ago. All right. Whew, that's good.
One strategy I found for the meetings things is which meetings can I call into that I don't need to be on a Zoom, and I go for a walk and put my headphones in. I'm
Yes.
still in the meeting, but I'm doing something pleasurable and spending time with my dog, so it's like better.
Yeah, I've got to do that more. It's
Good
so easy
transition. I
to sit
like
in
that
one
as
spot.
well. On reaching out to me, I hope encourage you to do so if you want to talk. Part of the tuition and part of the enrollment is about doing one-on-one, and it's not required at all by any means, but when you do call, I prefer the phone for that reason. So if you want to set up a 15 or 30-minute meeting, if you want to see face to face, that's fine, but I would prefer to just do the phone so we can walk and talk. And there's a lot of time to do that. If the times on the Calendly link don't work for you and another time works for you, just let me know. I'm usually pretty flexible and I like talking with people. So please feel free. Thank you, Amanda. Benny, Diana.
Yeah, I can go. So I moved from Pennsylvania to here.
Here is
in
Fort Collins, right?
Yeah, sorry. In September, I took a road trip in July by myself and found roommates and then moved. So it was pretty sporadic, spontaneous. After college, I knew that I just wanted to be somewhere else. And I'm working in a greenhouse, but it's extremely not fulfilling. I'm literally just a cash register person. I don't like what I went to college for. I don't feel passionate about it, and I don't know what to do because I am like I'm in a position where I really want to I want to like cultivate like play into my work, and I don't know how to do that. The only job, like every job that I apply for, I'm just underqualified for, just because I went to school for communications. Like I don't know what to do. So I'm trying to figure that out, and I'm hoping that some sort of inspiration comes to me from this, in terms of life path job stuff, because you kind of have to play the game of I need money to live, I need to work for money. So I'm struggling with that right now. But in the past couple years, I've really been focusing on play a lot, in my life, and trying to surrender to the flow of just creativity and play, because it was so silenced in my teenage years, and so judged and so put in a box that I rejected play. So maybe like two and a half years ago, I started to really surrender to it more and judge myself less on things like painting or dancing or singing or whatever, romping out in the woods, like literally anything can be play. And I'm trying to figure out a way to allow my job to allow me to do that and help other people express themselves in that way. I'm just kind of in a rut with that right now. I'm 22, so I'm relatively young and I have time and I'm not too concerned, but I'm extremely unfulfilled where I'm at and underpaid. So I'm trying to put a move on that quickly and try to get the ball rolling with that. And it would be really cool if this allowed me to just think in ways where I'm like, cool, I can make play a side hustle this way.
Yeah.
So that would be really cool. I didn't really come into this with too many goals. It was more so just it was recommended. It was a recommended thing from a friend, and I feel like her judgment is important in this realm, and I took it to heart and was like, okay, this would be really cool. And thankfully Wednesdays I have off, so I don't have any issues with that. But I just feel very, stuck in job stuff right now, which is very frustrating because I don't want to feel stuck in job stuff. I want to feel fulfilled, and I want to feel like I'm giving back to my community in ways that they also are giving back to me. And I'm just finding that. So I'll find it. It'll find me. We'll find each other. But yeah, I don't know what else to say. I think I'm done.
That's great. And I will be able to help with that for sure. That's one of my
Cool.
areas I really like to help people think about
Beautiful.
how to use a degree, like communications in creative ways, because you need to get creative with how you use that degree.
Yeah, exactly.
A
And
lot
I
of
was
people need it.
I was very blind going into that because I was undeclared for 2 years. And then I was
Yep.
like, oh, well, this is broad. I know how to communicate effectively. Like, let's do this.
Yep.
And then when I graduated, I was like, wow, so much has changed throughout my college years that my interests are so different now.
Yep.
And what I went and just spent all this money for doesn't even apply to me in the same ways that I thought it was going to.
We'll be able to help with that. I'm almost positive.
Well, nifty.
I want to go to Julian and then Diana, because I think, sorry, Diana, if you were all ready to go. All right, go, cool. That's cool. All right, Julian.
Did you choose me because I'm like in the exact same situation as Benny? Like,
Yeah.
could you tell?
Yeah, I also saw you lean in a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm the same age as Benny. I just finished college a year ago. I went to CSU, and now I've moved to Salt Lake City with my girlfriend. I'm loving it here. I love snowboarding and mountain biking, and now that stuff's just right in my backyard. Right now I'm working as a preschool teacher, which is super fun, also super challenging, but I like it. Feels like meaningful work. I come home every day feeling like I did something that matters. But at the same time, I don't think I want to be this exhausted and poor for the rest of my life.
Well said.
I work a lot of hours, and it's hard work. I actually usually won't be able to make it to these meetings, but this time I got COVID. So as a silver lining, I'm able to be here. Maybe next time the kids give me COVID, I'll be back, but otherwise I'll just be following along on my own. But yeah, I guess I initially got into this thinking like this would be a good way to figure out what I'm gonna do with the rest of my life. And like, obviously that's not possible, but trying to figure out more long-term ideas for my career, if I want to go back to grad school, when and why and for what. But honestly, as I've started doing free writing over this last week or so, I've found myself writing a lot more about my personal life and my like social relationships with friends and family and people that matter to me. So I honestly, at least for now during this workshop, I think I kind of plan to focus more on that stuff. But yeah, that's me.
Beautiful. Diana?
I'm a Leo. However, I'm actually very into astrology, so I can tell you my moon is in Cancer and I relate more to Cancer. And the opposite sign of Cancer is Capricorn. We both seek security, safety. So anyway, I decided to sign up for this course for three things now that I've heard different things. One is I'm also a learner. I love to continue learning about everything and anything. Two, because last year, even though I'm also a person who once I decide what I want, I can make it happen. last year was pretty lonely. So it was just not as fun to accomplish so much without having like, people to celebrate with. So this year I was just like, I'm gonna try to find things where I can be part of a group. And so this is exactly what I wanted. This is amazing. I didn't expect this first session to be so emotional, like connecting with all of you, and absolutely incredible. This is exactly what I wanted. And number 3, I'm looking for activities and that put me in that flow state. Like that's my way of pursuing happiness, to be in that flow state as much as possible. And I think the mindfulness writing could be one of them that I can add to my options of things I can do. Other than that, I'm also sort of in a transitional period. I quit my job back in May, my 9 to 5. I was at a technical support specialist, bilingual technical support specialist for a marketing company in Boston. I was with them for 8 years. 5 of those years, I got really into dancing. And so it was just, the job was paying my bills, but the rest of the time I was dancing up a storm. I became a Latin dance instructor. I taught and became the choreographer of a dance group at MIT. I didn't go to MIT, but in Boston, you find people in the in the different universities, and so I became close friends with them, and it was an amazing experience. Sadly, just life happened, and around the end of 2017, I just felt a pull that was done, that I needed to move on and do something else. And so it was weird because at that point I was a mini celebrity in the Cambridge, Boston area in the Latin dance community. And so having to pull from that was kind of shocking. A big change. And I'm still kind of like grieving that transition. People were reaching out all the time. And I went from that to wanting to do 10-day silent meditation retreat and loving them, not wanting to leave. I'm like, I'm ready to, do this silent life. Of course, that didn't also it didn't feel completely right. So probably in between, doing a lot of mindful meditation things, I got into Tai Chi and Qigong. I'm currently also taking Tai Chi classes. I took astrology courses, super into human design, if you guys know what that is. And so I quit my job in May, and I've been just doing a lot of hobbies. Thankfully, I did save up. I have my emergency fund, and now it's coming up in a year. My husband is supporting me as well, but we've been lucky during the pandemic. We were living with my own in-laws, so we were paying rent, and that was super helpful. We're back in our own place, and so rent is crazy in Boston, but we're still going to make it work. And I am set to. I joined this program called High Diversity. So also in May, I finished my master's degree. I transitioned from, I did international business 10 years ago. I'm 33 right now, 33. I did a master's degree now in computer information systems. So I want to get into software engineering. And so I joined this Hack Diversity program that supports minorities that want to get into data science, software engineering, and mechanical engineer. So it starts as a part-time program right now in January, and then in the summer I'll be able to do a paid full-time internship in Boston. So that's really cool. So it will give me time right now to do other things like this and focus on other hobbies. Other than that, I'm running a lot. I'm training for my first marathon in April, and I'm learning to play piano. When we were doing the writing exercise, I also thought that in piano, just getting my fingers strong, I have to tense them a little bit. And my teacher is like, relax. But if I relax, I can't play loud enough. So it's a little balance. I need to continue to practice so that I understand. I become aware. I can relax my fingers, but and still play it loudly. They need to be strong enough. So I don't know. There's an analogy there with the writing as well. What else? I write all my notes here. With what Amanda said, I also with productivity as well. So I'm trying to design an efficient life, I guess. I'm that type of person who has to have inbox zero, but I have all this long list of things I have to do and I want to do, but I don't have all the time to do it. So I need to learn to prioritize. And as you said, Sean, like to let go of what I know I'm not going to be able to get to, or it's just not my top priority. That's it.
Holy shit. It's pretty amazing. We're pretty much out of time, but I want to respect that and see. I'm going to send, normally what will happen at the end of the meeting, as soon as I'll upload this to YouTube, I'll send out an email with my notes that I took, which are messy, but I don't know, they might be interesting. They're always interesting for me to look at if you want to use those. And then I'll usually share the recording if you missed or need to miss the next day. I do, though, want to take time. Is anybody noticing anything, any collective shares? Well, that's not what I'm trying to say. Collective cares, things that we collectively care about. We have different generations, different situations, but I'm noticing some, not universal, but did we notice, and trying to be as brief as possible here, do we notice things that are common among us?
Yeah, I noticed that like a lot of us are trying to do like job transitions and everything, and even if it's from like really big job to like maybe I want to retire, or maybe I want to do something more fulfilling. Like it seems like I want to do something more fulfilling, but I'm in such a different place. So it seems interesting that a lot of us have that in common.
Great one, Benny. Thank you. Other things we noticed.
I think
We
it's
all
common.
showed up with like intention and are ready to work and are ready to lean in and like milk this as much as we can. Like,
Yes.
and I just love how everybody was so open so quickly so that we can like
Yes.
hit the ground running and
Yes.
build rapport and then,
Yes.
just like get that going. I love that.
Me too. I was really excited about this before this started, and I feel like my intuition was like spot on.
Like a
Kathy?
teaser though, because I feel like I know a little bit
I
about
know.
everybody now, and I just want to know more about everybody's story.
I know.
It's like a little teaser. It's great.
Kathy, did you also?
I was just going to say what Diana said. Connection is what I've been craving during this crazy lockdown, and the group that really was the underlying goal of signing up. Was I know I can do it by myself, but I don't want to.
I think another consistency I kind of heard was just time. Like there's this element of time, that whether we're just starting our careers or thinking about ending our careers, like it all boils back to time and what do we want to be doing with our time, and how much of it do we have, and how much energy do we want to put towards it, and what are we putting the right things towards it. So I boil a lot of it down to time. And like, this is kind of a silly statement, but my current founder of our company always talks about, as in life and as humans, we're time billionaires, where we have endless amounts of time, but we're always not doing the best thing with that amount. And he'll laugh at me for quoting him, but but yeah, time was just the thing that I took away as a commonality.
Cool one. Matt, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
You're good.
I'd like to piggyback that on time of using our time well to cultivate meaning by finding freedom, by honing in on our gifts and sharing them well to the world, and maybe being able to find a little bit more freedom in that time rather than pinned down by the obligations or the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, or even the constant agenda or schedule. Getting outside of the hamster wheel of culture and into the creativity of really sharing ourselves and our gifts and assets, and sharing our greatness. And like I said, we cultivate that together. Together we make up that greatness.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody. I'm gonna +1 the intention to lean in and milk it, and just the way everybody's shown up here. So refreshing. compared to my CSU classes where 2/3 of the people don't have their cameras on and 1/3 of the people don't show up, and they're also paying more money for it. Yeah, thanks, Julia. Let's pop out. So just as a teacher, that's incredibly refreshing. And it is exactly what I'm looking for. There's only in terms of like business housekeeping stuff. Are we okay using the email thread to talk to the whole group? Like if somebody has something they want to share with the group, can we use that email thread of each week? Because I haven't found an efficient way. I've tried to keep communication somewhere else and it just becomes one other thing to check. Does anybody just send me a message if you want to be left off of the group email?
I'd like to change my email.
Great.
If I,
will you just send me an email? Just send me
Yeah.
an email so that it goes to the right mail. And then if you have something that you feel like you want to share, as we move forward, we're going to explore different ways to either connect with people individually. And I do hope that this is, Amanda, your point, this does seem like this is the beginning, and we're going to nurture this as we go on, and hopefully for a lot longer than the 7 weeks, and just generate a stronger community network here of people that generally care about living well and want more fulfilling. The other thing I noticed, last thing I'll say, is this difference that outside people would say that I'm successful. Like it seems like I'm successful, but there's more room for me to feel more personally fulfilled, whatever that is. And I want to explore what that means for me. Really fascinating and cool. So I want to explore what that is for us as well. Okay. I would encourage, last thing. I do really want to encourage us to sign a creative contract with ourselves before we meet again next week. And that creative contract should do 2 things. It should identify what you want to do every day and every week. I don't care if it's 1 minute a day, but I want you to agree with yourself what that thing you're going to do is. And by every day, I do 6 out of 7 days. So I write every day, but sometimes I don't. If I miss 2 days in a row, I know I'm in trouble. Because the 3rd day is actually really hard to pick it back up. It's crazy how hard it is to pick it up the 3rd day after not doing it 2 days. Martial art teacher said, every day you practice, you put 1 page in your book. Every day you miss, you tear 4 out. So just, you're trying to think about what you can do every day. What does that look like for you? I would recommend at least a 3-minute free writing practice to get the most out of this course, but you'll find that 3 minutes will turn into 5, will turn into 10. I personally set aside 30 minutes and try to write consistently for 20 of those minutes. So I give myself 10 minutes of, what do I write? I'm going to get back to it. Second thing your creative contract does is I want everybody to step up for a little bit more self-care. Just whatever you do for self-care, diet, movement, calling people you care about, what that looks like for you. This is from Julia Cameron's book. She says, when you engage in really making your life the best it can be, shit will come up. Somehow. So just, and I'm not saying that it will, but just prepare to agree to a little bit more self-care for yourself, which for me is more good food. Just cooking a little more good food. Cool. So by the next time, what's the contract you want to sign with yourself to agree to do something every day and then some bigger thing every week? So just hold yourself accountable. And then second, what kind of self-care things are you going to do? That's in the material I'm going to send you, and I would just highly recommend. I think that's a great start for this. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Let's get off of this machine. And
Thank you.
I'll send you an email. See you, everybody.
Nice to meet everyone.
Thanks.
That was awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.